Says Sare Ishtichal Isikra Shma Sare Kisare Shma. Hine Shini Hashem Shel Sara. In order, why did Hashem change the name of Sara? Lias Labachina Salada, to give birth, like it says in the Medrash. So Sara won't give birth, but Sara will. Vim Kain Tzarech Lahav, and we need to understand that because Yud is higher than Hey. So Sarai had a Yud. If Yud couldn't give birth, how can Hey give birth? Ki Yud Chachma Hey Abina. V'nei, then it's known Ki Ikar Elodim Bechinas Chachma. The primary Elod is from the level of Chachma. Visha Chachma Bechinas Ayin, and Chachma is Ayin Timotze. But Bina is called Yesh. So if you're talking about creating a baby which is Yesh Mi'ayin, it applies more to Chachma than Bina. So if Yud is Chachma and Hey is Bina, how could Sarah with a Yud not give birth and Sarah with a Hey could give birth? The power of giving birth.
When did the name change came?
By Bris Bein Absarim, at the end of the Parshat, when Hashem made the covenant with Avraham, when he changed his name from Avram to Avraham, so he changed the name Sarai to Sarah. Sarai to Sarah. See, that's Lekech Me'ita Koyach HaYud. They could talk from it, the Koyach of Yud, and they gave it a Hey. So how is it possible to give birth? The Inyan is Ki Avram is Sarah. Avraham and Sarah, the level of Chachma Ilah and Chachma Tata. Higher level of Chachma is Avraham, lower level of Chachma is Sarah. Shashayresh Avraham Bechinas Chachma Datzilis. This is the way it works upstairs. Ikar Elod, the primary concept of giving birth. To be Metzias Elod Chadash, to give birth to a new entity, is Aidei Tzimtum Dafka. Because if there is bittul, so there's no new entity. It's completely bottled to the higher entity. If you want to create a new entity, that means a new yesh, so then there can be bittul. There has to be a tzimtzum. Because if the lower level would feel the higher level, then there's no new entity. It's only the old entity. Because if Hashem would reveal himself as he is in an infinite state, there couldn't be any creation at all. Because if you have, let's say, infinite, you cut infinite in half, which you can't, it's still infinite. So you can't have Ilav all cause and effect. Infinite, a little bit less, because it's still infinite. It's still Ein Sof. So in order for Ein Sof to create a Yesh, there has to be a Tzimtzum. Okay, so I don't know how we got into this yesterday, but we're discussing that in order to have from Yesh to Yesh, there has to be an Ayin Be'emtza. Because one entity, one Yesh, one existence, is a contradiction to another existence. So therefore, in order to create one existence, a different type of existence, from an earlier type of existence, there has to be Ayin Be'emtza. Like we were saying yesterday, that Rabbi Zera fasted 40, and the other version 100 fasts. They should forget Talmud Bavli before he went to Eretz Yisrael. So it's hard to understand because it's still learning Torah. Why should that lower level of learning Torah? Yeah, granted, Yerushalmi is higher than Bavli because Kimitzi and Teitzei Torah. But why shouldn't it be that it should help him? On the contrary, why did he forget it? So the answer is like this: when it's if it's the same thing, higher and lower, in the same level, then the more lower you have, the better it helps to get to the higher. Right? If you learn a little bit, and then that helps you to learn more, and then to learn more, and to learn more. But that's only when it's in the same realm of understanding. If it's a completely different way of thinking, then the earlier thinking gets in the way of the higher thinking. We started mentioning this yesterday. Okay? When in today, I never understood this thing until this generation, okay? Lecha, us old guys can't figure this new computer stuff, internet. We can't do it. We need the little kids to do it. Yeah? So Lecha, what does it mean? They're smarter than they're not. They're not necessarily smart. They probably are anyway. But they're not necessarily smarter. So why do they get it and we don't? Because our intellect, we were raised in a certain style of intellect, a certain way of thinking. This is a whole different way of thinking. Our earlier way of thinking actually gets in the way of the new way of thinking because it's a completely different type of way. The whole internet, this whole computers, all the new gadgets, yeah? AI, it's a completely different way of thinking. So no knowledge is not a contradiction to that. Then you could pick it up easily because there's nothing in your brain contradicting it. Because we were taught to think a certain way. That's the way we were taught, right? And therefore this knowledge that we have gets in the way of a completely different, if it will be the same knowledge more or less, on the contrary, then a little knowledge would help for more knowledge. Bavli and Yerushalmi is a completely different way of thinking. So it's not the pshat. Bavli would get in the way of Yerushalmi. He wouldn't be able to think like Yerushalmi because Bavli is not letting him think this new thinking style. And therefore, in order to be yesh has to be ayin be'emsa, because it's a very simple thing. One yesh, by definition, contradicts a different yesh. It is, because this is its dimensions, and this is its dimension, which are different than the first dimensions. So therefore, it contradicts each other. So how do you get from one level to the next? There must be a tzimtzum. There has to be an ayin be'emsa.
So how is this shaykh to the name of Sarai and Amram?
How we got into this yesterday, I don't remember.
The Yud and the whole...
No, but he's asking, the Alter Rebbe is asking a question, l'chayra, if Yud is the Kayachayloda, so how is it possible that the Yud, she couldn't give birth? And with the Hey, she could give birth, l'chayra, it's a country, it doesn't make sense.
Because the Yud is higher than...
Because Yud is Kayachayloda, Yud is Chacham, which is Yesh Miyayin. So he says, here, Bash'en kin lamata, and down here in the level of Sadu lehepech mamish. Shiva ya'or mitzam, so l'mayla, the Alter Rebbe says, up there, to get from Ein Sof to Gvul has to be a tzimtzum. But down here, im ha'ya'or mitzam, if there'll be too much tzimtzum, ha'yacheshech v'helem v'hestigam, it will be a total concealment. If there's a total concealment, you can't get anything. It's dafka through the level of gilui. And he says, that's binyan tmunas beis hein. That's the concept of the two hay. Now, what do you mean two hays? Hello? Every letter has a milui. You have the letter Aleph. And then the way Aleph is pronounced is Aleph Lamed Pei. Beis is Beit Yud Sof. Right? Hey is three tzurufim of Hey. Hey Aleph, and Hey Yud. Okay? Normally, Hey, the milui, like Mem, the milui of Mem is another Mem. Hey, the milui of Hey is a Hey. Usually. Sometimes you don't. By the way, that's the way how you get, we learned this many times, how you get the names of Yud Kivovki, you hear the name Ma, Ban, Sa, Ganab. Yeah? Name of 45, name of Yud Kivovki, it could be 45, it could be 52, it could be 63, it could be 72. What is that dependent on? In the Yud, in the Milui of the, so let's say you have Yud Kivovki equals 26, yeah? But if you write it out, Yud is Yud Vav Daled, that's 20. Okay? Then you have Hey, let's say, is 10. That's 30. Then you have Vav. Vav could be Vav or Vav Aleph Vav. Then Hey again could be, so in different ways it equals 45 52, 63, 72. Those are the different names of Hashem. But again, he says like this. Kerud binyan Timunis Beis Hayin. So therefore he says like this. Mashin the taste of Avram Hay. This that Avram had a hay. Because Avram ain't a melid. Like the Medrash says, Avram can't give birth, Avraham will give birth. Sarah cannot give birth, Sarah will give birth. See, Avram, Ubechinas Chachmila, like it says in the Pasuk, Avam ein Goyim, Al der Ubechinas HaNefesh, Asher Asu B'Chodim. The Nefesh that he made in Chodim is the elevation of Zel Umazeh, Avalei Lodis Yitzchak, can't be, Adra Kositu Gedushis Bitu V'Leis Pashtus, okay, whatever. So the bottom line is, Rabbi explained that Lamata has to be not so much of a tzimtzum. Lamaila has to be a tzimtzum. Lamata doesn't have to be a tzimtzum, which whatever. Let's leave it at that. Okay, next mimer is the mimer that they're supposed to say at the bris milah. Okay. What? You need a first mimer? Yeah, I know. Okay, Be'ed, what?
Between the two yesh and the eye in the middle, that's the connecting
Link.
between the two. The top part of the link, the part that is on the higher part of the two, that's the part that is into more?
It doesn't work like that. No, because the mashal, Gashmi is the mashal for yesh to yesh ayin b'emtza. You plant a seed in the ground. The seed is a yesh. Okay, out comes a tree, or wheat, or whatever, right? That's another yesh. But in order for the seed to produce a tree or produce wheat, it has to rot, germinate, as it's called in English. So Chassidus explains, why does it have to germinate? Why does it have to rot? Neighbors just set it up that way, right? Okay, it is that way, but why did Hashem make it that way? Because in Ruchnius, it's like everything Gashmis comes from Ruchnius. Because in Ruchnius, from, like he's saying here, from one yesh to another yesh, because they're contradictory, so you need ayin be'emsa. Right? But the ayin be'emsa, when it rots, it still has the koyach of the seed. In other words, a seed is not a tree. So if it's limited as a seed, it has its dimensions as a seed, okay? How could it become a tree? A tree is not a seed, and a seed is not a tree. So the seed has the potential for the tree. But it can't remain a seed because a seed can't be a tree. It's categorized as a seed. So when the seed rots, but in the iron, the whole potential of the tree is there. In other words, the seed itself can create a tree, right? But you buy a seed in the store, you're not going, no matter what you do, you're not going to make a tree out of it. You have to plant it in the ground. And not only you plant it in the ground, it has to rot. And then out comes the tree. Which means as follows. The seed in it is the whole potential of the entire tree. Which is remarkable. Think about it. This tiny little seed has in it the roots of the tree, the trunk of the tree, the fruit, the branches of the tree, the fruits of the tree. It's all in this little seed. Yeah? But it's still defined as a seed. And a seed is not a tree or a bush or whatever, vegetables, whatever it is. So it has to rot. Why is it like that in Gashmi? It's because in Ruchni it's like that. From yesh to yesh can't be without an ayin b'emsa.
Without what?
Without tzimtzum, without becoming nothing, it can't be from something to something because, again, it's defined as something A and something B. It's a different definition, so it can't come that way. Ayin b'emsa is tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means it's less love. Tzimtzum is bittul. When a person limits himself, he's being mevatel himself.
It's just complete destruction.
Yeah, but it's also, he's saying, you needed, the ayin b'emsa means you needed tzimtzum from one yesh to another yesh. Because how can you change from one yesh to another yesh without something happening in between? You have to change the first yesh to make it yayin. It's the second yesh.
You cannot,
But what?
You cannot reveal potential unless you're total.
Correct.
So from somebody who's...
One second, let me say something. You have different hashpahs. I'll give you an example. You have teacher-student. He's mashpia seichel, right? A boss is mashpia productivity, money, whatever it might, right? Then you have in childbearing, that's a hashpah of a zera, that the father is mashpia the zera into the woman, and then through that, 9 months later, comes out a baby. Now, when you have mashpia and mushpa, giver and receiver, so you have a lot of times a teacher and a student. If it's really a devoted student, the student sometimes gets the mannerisms of the teacher. But it's not the same essential hashpah like a parent to a child, because the child is an extension of the father. They can look alike. A student and teacher are not going to look alike. They might think alike. They might, because of the mannerisms, might be a little bit similar. But the hashpah is an etzendik hashpah, not of Rav and Talmud, but of Av and Ben. It's a much, much deeper, essential. In the zed of the father is the whole essence of the father. It's the essence of the father. And yet, it has to become symptom into the tipa, into the seed, into the sperm, to be able to create the baby. It's also hashpah.
From sinner to have tshuva, in between you have to have a bittul.
Tshuva is bittul. What does tshuva mean? I don't do what I want, I do what Hashem wants. Even a lower level of tshuva. A lower level of tshuva means I don't do what I want, I do what Hashem wants. Correct? Then you have a higher level of tshuva. But the simple concept of the tshuva is bittul. Or even that tshuva ilah, which is not for sins, right? With the come to Varuch Toshu Elokim Asher Nesano, that the neshama returns to Hashem, not dying, but conceptually, because that's also the level of bittul. Therefore, by teacher-student, Rav and Talmud, if the Talmud is not bottled to the Rav, he can't learn anything. Therefore, when the Rebbe would speak, yeah, when you're listening to the Sikha, you can't think anything to understand what the Sikha says. We have to first hear what he's saying. And then you can start delving in to understand what he's saying. But if your mind starts working, and therefore what happened by Matan Torah? Vayaron, Vayunu, Vayamdu, they trembled. The Gemara says, Mala Halan, Ba'ema, Bereses of Isaiah, just like by Matan Torah, there was awe and the shaking and trembling. Afkan, every time a person learns Torah, it has to be bittul. Right? Because in order for the Talmud to be makabel from the Rav, if he thinks about himself, then he can't be makabel. Then there's no room to put in the teaching of the teacher.
Well, if you have a question, what if you want to expand what?
So ideally, in the real Rav and Talmud, you don't ask questions in the middle.
You gotta hush your mind.
You have to just think what they're saying, and the later. Because if you're asking, that's already yesh. I need to understand. And then the hashpah, you have to hear what he says. Then you go over it and learn, So any hashpah has to be bittul. Because the yesh to yesh has to be an ayin v'emsa. It has to be this level of bittul in the middle. Okay, that's Avraham in the middle of this day, at the end of the Parshat, right? Avraham Avinu did a bris. To understand the question asked in Sfarim, Why did Avraham Avinu was 99 years old? Yeah? He started keeping Torah mitzvahs at 3, 40, 48, the three different opinions, yeah? Different stages of his. So if he kept the whole Torah, why didn't he do a bris milah before he was commanded to do it? He kept it the whole Torah. So he should have, especially bris milah is so important, why didn't he do it first? Because Avraham Avinu, Chazal tell us, kept the whole Torah before he was given, afilu eruv tavshilin. Even eruv tavshilin, which is meaning even rabbinic laws Avraham Avinu kept. Yeah? It's another interesting definition, it's because we have time. Eruv tavshilin means, there's a I'm pretty sure it's the Ramban, or maybe that's Kirmal Tesis, whatever. So, some opinions in Medrash say Avram did not keep the whole Torah. Why? Because he gave the malach meat and milk.
What's wrong with that?
Huh?
What's wrong with that?
Meat and milk together?
Milk and meat.
But he gave
Milk
him
and meat.
What did I say?
Meat and milk.
but he gave him the milk first.
Milk and meat.
He gave him the butter.
But they didn't eat now.
And then later, by the time he chef and this and then.
No. So there's an opinion in Medrash that Adavis did not keep the Torah, and the proof is he gave milk and meat. What's the meat and milk and meat? So he gave him treif, basically. And the other opinion says no. He gave him the milk, and then the meat. Like it says, "V'ika chema v'chalav uben habakar shasa." First he gave him the milk, and then he gave him the flesh. So therefore he didn't have to wait too long. But there is an opinion that Avraham Avinu didn't keep the Torah because the Avis didn't keep the Torah. The accepted opinion is the Avis kept the Torah, but not everybody says that in the Medrash. Even again, I remember the Ramban of Daskin Malatesis says in Chumash over there by the Malach, they didn't keep the Torah. Okay? In fact, there's a Medrash that says when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven to get the Torah, the Malachim came with a complaint. Yeah, give us the Torah. So the Gemara in Shabbos says, he said, "Were you in Mitzrayim?" But the Medrash says, Avraham Avinu said to the Malachim, "You guys didn't keep Torah. You ate meat and milk. So you guys, what do you want to tell you? You don't even want it. You didn't keep it." Okay? So, some people say Erev Tafshilin means the mixture of Tafshilin of meat and milk. That he kept even Erev Tafshilin, even though he gave the malach meat and milk together, but he still kept it because he gave him milk first and then meat. The simple meaning is Erev Tafshilin means Erev Tafshilin that you do before Yom Tov, when it's Shabbos, that you do Erev Tafshilin, which means even the rabbinic mitzvahs he kept. So, but the question is, so why didn't he do a bris before everything? So he says, to understand this, we need to understand first the concept of bris milah. It says in the Chumash, Leiba Shemayim, he Torah is not in the heaven. Leimer to say, Miyala lanu ha-shemayma, Torah is not in heaven that somebody is going to come up and say, Miyala lanu ha-shemayma, we're going to go up to heaven. Right? So it says, Rosh Tevis Mila, Sefer Tevis Havaya. Mi, Yala lanu ha-shemayma is Mila. The last letters, Mi, Ya'aleh, Lonu, Hashemayma is Yudke Vavke. Right? Mila Mem Yud Lamed Hey, Yudke Vavke. Now we know that there's Rosh Tevis and Safa Tevis. Right? You have that all over Torah. Right? Beresh is Bara Elakim and Safa Tevis are Emes. Asher Bara Elakim Lases is Emes, the end letters, yeah? So you have that all over Torah. So it's self-understood that Rosh Tevis are higher than Sefer Tevis. Right? The first letters are higher than the end letters. So it comes out that Mi Yala Lanu Hashemayma Mila is the Rosh Tevis. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the Sofa Tevis, which means Mila is even higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's clear, right? So he says, Dini le miyalan Sofa Tevis Havaya. Okay, so Lecha, how can Mila be higher? He said to understand the whole union of Mila, right? What's the union of Mila? So Mila, he's explaining, is even higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right? Because it's Rosh Hashanah and Zafat Tevis. Let's say first it says in the Pasuk, one Pasuk says, first it says, you should circumcise the oil of your heart. And another Pasuk says, that Hashem will do the bris. Right? One pasuk says and the other pasuk says So which one is it? Are we doing it or is Hashem doing it? So obviously it's clear that there's two levels of Mila. There's a Mila we do, and there's a Mila that Hashem does. There's two levels of Mila. One is Momata Lamaila that we do. That we have to remove the foreskin of the heart. We're learning in Tanya the other day, right? The Shabbos morning. That there's a concept of Arla means it covers the foreskin that covers the bris, the area, or Umaltem is Arla Slavavcha, meaning there's a covering of the heart that doesn't allow the intellectual seichel meditation to permeate the heart. Just you could try meditating and it doesn't go, doesn't work. It's called timtum alev. Sometimes you have what's called timtum amayach. Timtum amayach means the timtum is like a tumtum. It's blocked. So you can have in Yiddish as an expression a verstoppte Herz, a stuffed up heart, and a verstoppte Kopf. I mean, you can have a head, nothing goes into it. That means you have a, in Yiddish, it's verstoppte Kopf. Remember that, verstoppte Kopf. Verstoppte heart. Yeah? So you have the head, so there's sometimes the Orlas Halev, you have to remove the Orlas Halev. Because it's blocking the seichel from penetrating. There's another pasuk, Vasireisi eslevo even mikir b'cha. Hashem said, I'm going to remove the stone heart from you. What do you mean, levo even? When you pour water on the stone, it just bounces off. It doesn't penetrate it. So there's a heart that's stone. When you say a person has a stoned heart, it means that there's no movement of kindness, of chesed, it's just stone. Everything blocks off it. So there's Arlas 11, okay.